So I am delighted to be able to turn this over to Tom Helms and let him give us of his impeccable knowledge. Thanks, Tom.
Hold the applause. Thank you, Laura. I've known her since she was in the 8th grade. Ladies and gentlemen, if I still taught, this would have been my 53rd year in the classroom. I think looking at today's educational systems, you know why I left. I welcome you, and I understand the traffic is terrific and roads are kind of sterilized by not being used anymore because of the traffic congestions. So we're going to start. I'm going to talk about what I spoke about 5 years ago to this group, to kind of give you a reminiscence of what we talked about as I moved into other areas. You know, last time we talked about everything has value, the difference between fair market value and secondary value market, and the 6 noted values for everything. You know, there are more disputes over personal property than bank accounts. We have a member here who is in a trust department, and that person can really discuss the problems that happens around personal property. And I'm happy about it because it keeps me in business. And our business is AZ Appraisal and Estate Consultants, and it should be estate counseling services. You know, it's very important, as I spoke before, that you document your properties for trust, insurance, equitable distribution, and basically insurance purposes. I mentioned the word equitable distribution. Most people have no idea what I'm really talking about. I'm going to give you a quick scenario. We have Bill and Martha, son and daughter to you both. Well, as a couple, they were wonderful, marvelous children. But you didn't know the underlying issues between the two of them at all until you're gone. And then trouble erupts. So you give Martha all your jewelry. The son feels left out because he has a wife that would have liked to adorn some of that jewelry, and also remember you through his wife wearing your jewelry. But you didn't think beyond that because your $75,000 worth of jewelry went to her, and so it was not equitable. So $75,000 should have been deducted from the monies that were going to be evenly distributed between the two of them, and therefore it's equitable and there's no hard feelings on one person versus the other. Equitable distribution is very important, including a broken Hummel to a candy jar or whatever else, that it is equitable amongst your heirs. We have intrinsic and versus monetary value. Intrinsic, I have an email this morning I woke up to. A woman has had her items in storage for the last 7 years at the bequest of her son, who really wanted it, and he's now changed his mind. She has been paying the storage fees all along. Instead of saying, you want it, you pay the storage fees. That's what you should do. If your children want anything, you say, okay, go get a storage unit, pay for it, and it'll go there until it turns old and into dust. So she doesn't know what to do. So the consulting comes into it. I also spoke about the do's and don'ts of donation. And they are steeped in all kinds of problems and issues and areas where you can donate monetary to properties and how you can get the most out of that donation. And why an appraisal needs to go for your trust. Thank you out there for those of you who have not moved your properties into your trust, because that's when I'm called, Tom, we need to have all of this moved into the trust. That happens all of the time. So that's it. I want to tell you, and I want to ask you a question. Who is the strongest member in your family? I'm going to do that thought because I'm going to ask you, all right? Ma'am, who is the strongest member of your family?
Me.
Why?
Always been that way.
Okay, one more. Who is the strongest member in your family?
Oh, me.
Well, this is the me generation. Okay. Well, I'm going to argue with both of you. The strongest member in the family is the weakest member in the family. The weakest member controls every aspect of the family. If you have a drug-addicted child, that child is controlling everybody. If you have a workaholic husband who is never home, he is controlling everything in that household. So the weakest person in the family is the controller of it. And if you recognize that now, and then that weakest person is still around, you can protect your estate by boarding it up against the weakest person. Let me give you a very quick story about the weakest person. We had this was in July, a trust that came about, death of the family, and the trust attorney omitted the personal property out of the trust that was to a son who had been disinherited. And so his name was still on the personal property in the trust for 3 homes. And so his attorney went against the other attorney. Consequently, we had to go in and appraise all the furnishings in 3 homes so that it could be equitably divided amongst the 4 heirs, and he would get his share out of it. No child could take anything out of the house whatsoever. It all had to go to auction, and they had to purchase it at the auction. And that was the error of the attorney, because he didn't read it well. So personal property from the weakest link can cause you all kinds of grief. So remember that. The weakest link is the strongest person. And equitable distribution is a major issue. We have learned, and this is what I talked about before, is that distant relatives, nephews, in-laws, a friend, a stepdaughter, a stepson, an ex-wife, or an ex-husband can become very difficult when there's monies and properties around. In fact, I compare it to the 7 deadly sins. And there are 5 that cause the most problems. Greed. The mean avenue of greed. I want it. I deserve it. And no matter what it costs, I'll get it. One other quick story this year is we had an estate in the Arcadia area, 4 children. The one daughter felt that she had been left out for years. Mom had gone into beginnings of dementia. She pulled her out of the house, took her into her house and said, "Mom, I'm going to take care of you." Changed the locks on the house and proceeded to do nasty and dastardly things. Each of the brothers and the sisters got their own attorney and went out after it. We're called in via another attorney to solve this situation. It's because the brother and sister who hated each other hadn't been in the house for a year because they couldn't stand each other. They would fight. So the whole thing had come to a standstill, and the judge said, mediate this because they're draining the estate. Greed. Wrath. Wrath. That one is the wrath that forces attorneys to enjoy and open up their billing hole. And you have contributed to their billing hole through wrath. And the hole gets deeper as the anger rises higher. And remember, is that the weakest link? Envy. My brother got more special attention than you got. And envy, wrath, greed even opens the billing hole even more. So we have those 7 deadly sins, 5 of them that happens to really be pushing it, but gluttony is the one that overwhelms me. I want more, I want more, I want more. We have just completed an estate with 3 sisters. The house is over 5,000 square feet. The sisters had to go in and select the items they want, they took everything in the house. Everything. I mean, pots, pans, etc. We had to list for this sister A, this sister B, this sister C, and items under contention because it had not been planned out. And I thought, where are you going to put all this? You're in your 60s and 70s. So, gluttony. And gluttony also puts us into the area of hoarding houses. We are on the Arizona Hoarding Task Force, and there are over, are you ready? Hold on, people. There are over 60,000 hoarding houses in Maricopa County alone. That we know of. We want to thank the Hoarding Show because it has brought a disease to the forefront. We have been in them where the electricity has been turned off, the water's been turned off, and they're living in the house. Gluttony. And pride. Pride of it all is the ingredients to tragedy. It's the family, everything is put above because of pride. And remember, the only winners in all of this are the attorneys and us. Because we are brought in and the attorneys are brought in to solve that situation. You all have the keys to stop it all. You, right now. Through your attorney and through making that trust, your will, your documents as specific as possible to contain the weakest link in it. And remember, the equitable distribution is the most important. Well, that's what I talked about 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, I met a gentleman here who sat in the audience, who is our jeweler in the back, Robert Conley. He was told, Robert, you need to go listen to Tom. He's really well known. He has it all together. And Robert has been with us as a subcontractor for 5 years. He works with the banks, the trust departments, attorneys, John Q. Public, everyone. He knows his stuff. So he's appraising your items right now, and we'll briefly talk about that later. And the other two people that are with me today are Ron Freeman, my friend of over 50 years. And how many of you have been up to Flagstaff? He was the founder of the Cottage Place. So if you ever clicked a glass there, Ron started that. And Jeff Pearson, who brought you in. And Jeff, there's a woman here who's going to meet you who has been going to a seminar in Scottsdale on Scottsdale murders. And I told her that you will make your day because Jeff is one of the nation's leading experts on true crime, memorabilia, and the oddities. So we cover all bases possible from the weird, the wacky, the mundane. And the mundane keeps us in business. So do you know that the average household, the average now, I'm talking about the shack in the south to the mansion in the north, the average secondary market values is $32,000 in your house. However, the replacement cost, which you should all have that insurance on for that, would be $96,000. And then you go on up from there. So the replacement cost insurance should be on your forte because that's where it's going to go. We do insurance problems because you're only insured to $55,000, you have a fire, and only 5% of those houses that are completely, 5% of houses that are completely destroyed need the total. It's partial. Now, if you're in a flood zone and all the other stuff, that's a different story. And you only insured to $55,000. Well, guess what? That's going to eat it up because you didn't think about your toothbrush, you didn't think about the canned goods, you didn't think about other items in the house that we take for granted. So you might want to meet with your insurance agent and say, I want to increase this because we see that property values have gone up. Likewise, replacement cost of furnishings have gone up. So that should be on your to-do list, all right? Robert back there is doing an auction, a fair market, orderly liquidation value for your jewelry. And I'm going to tell you that we, by law, of our governing standards of the USPAP that governs our business, is that if I sat down and said, Mrs. Got Rocks, your ring is worth blah, well then I am obligated to fill out all this paperwork for Mrs. Got Rocks and for myself, Mr. No Rocks, and then I document all of that, sign it, give you the copy, I take a copy, I have to keep that for 5 years. By keeping it blind, I don't know whose ring it is, Robert has no idea whose ring it is. We are using it as an example of what it is actually worth, but not knowing who you are. So that moves me into auction estimates. Auction estimates are exactly that. They have no legal standing. They are not appraisals. They are the person's opinion of what it might be worth at a well-advertised auction. We were hosting the Antique Roadshow when I was on the board at Rawson House and got all involved in the Antiques Roadshow and all the problems and all the comments that came about with the Antique Roadshow. It's an enjoyable show. I mean, you can learn a lot. What happens, and I'll make it brief, I could be on the road show, submit my application, you're welcome. Then I have to fly myself in wherever it's going to be. I have to make all my own expenses whatsoever. And then I'm in line with all the other appraisers. And if you will always note, there's basically the same 3, 4, 5 appraisers that are always there. We would wind up being the servants. You come in with your cane, go over to that one. You come in with your watch, go over there. You go over here, you go over there, etc. And so all these guest appraisers all the way around are doing the work. And so your cane, that belonged to Napoleon. Look at this. And I get all this information about your cane. And then I call other appraisers in and we talk about it. Then we go and get to the head cheese and say, we think we have something here. They bring the cameraman over and they start filming and talking, etc., about your cane. And then that goes into the possibility that I might be on the Antique Roadshow. Guess what? There's basically maybe one person and out of every other show that winds up being on television. So you can put it in your vitae that you were on the Antique Roadshows. I don't want to do that. It's the same thing as with all the shows that you see on television. They follow the same format, ignore the values. And I'm going to read to you what Heritage Auction House has said. And Heritage Auction House has become the nation's leading auction house. It has surpassed Bonham's. Bonham's has basically sold all their properties. They have been purchased by another organization, and they're going through a whole change. Sotheby's has just announced in the New York Times, I think it was yesterday, that they're under a $362 million suit for fraud. Involved in other issues. Heritage takes almost everything and anything. And this is what Heritage says. They will provide quick and free evaluations of the possible current market value of art or collectibles. This is in the form of a verbal or written auction estimate, the range of value that one would expect to see the item sell for in today's auction market. This valuation is not intended for use as a formal appraisal for any purpose whatsoever, as it is not an insurance to establish value for tax, estate planning, collateral, or third-party transactions. So it's just an information that it might go for A to B at that auction. How are values determined? Okay, not through an estimate. There is a profound difference between price and cost. You can call me and say, Tom, I found this on eBay and it's worth $2,500. I said, okay, is that the price or is that the cost? Well, that's what they're asking for it. Oh, I said, that's the price. And how many of us go out and buy something at its price? We wind up looking for the deal. to bring it down to our cost that fits into our wallet. Therefore, we're going to buy it, but we're not going to pay your price. So eBay has all of these prices. And if you're eBay savvy, you go to sold listings. Click on sold listings, and that $2,500 item wound up costing being the cost of it $25. So you will find these outrageous values. The same way with Ruby Lane and other listings of items. They're encouraged to give very, very high values, and then private negotiations on what it's going to cost the person. So eBay is a major tool for you to use to find out what something is worth. In fact, the items that are back there, I have given at the end of our little program, I'm going to give you what is the orderly liquidation value and what is the fair market value of the item. Now, the orderly liquidation value would be the one that is universally United States. The orderly liquidation value for the market area here is going to be different. The same way with fair market value is universal, not basically for Phoenix. So there are all these variables when you're looking out for what is the cost. So when anybody asks you, say, Margaret, what price did you pay, or what did that cost you? Well, the price was $2,500. Let her believe that. But you only paid $25 for it. She doesn't need to know that. So the difference between cost and price, something very important. So what do I do to find the cost of something? I have to find a comparable. The same way is that your neighbor has pounded a sign up in front of his house for sale, and the homes in your area are going for $400,000. Well, he has an intrinsic value of his house. He's listed it for $650,000. And there it sits and sits and sits. And he starts complaining, nobody's looking at my house. Well, he has priced himself out of the market. It is not the cost that the house is really worth. And the same thing is with all these different items that you see that we deal with. We have to find out what is the cost of that item by finding all the comparables. For example, there is a pitcher back there that has a diamond cut, which is kind of a Waterford style look to it. It's not Waterford. It is a molded crystal with flaws. And it has not marked, and therefore it is not the crystal that you think it is, but you can fool the people at your dining table that is a Waterford crystal, but it's not. So you have to take all those into consideration, and you have to find a comparable that would parallel that picture. And it may not be exactly like it, but it falls into the same category. Wherein that another article on that table is the Kachina, the squash head Kachina. Well, that squash head Kachina has issues. And if you'd looked at it very, very carefully, you would realize that the fertility symbol of it, the flowers are blah. The carving is very mediocre, and it has also been badly repaired. So when you are looking at a cost of something, you have to take into the consideration its condition. The same thing with your house. The roof leaks, the plumbing shot, and everything else, wherein the neighbor's house is much better off. That cost of that house is going to be far superior to the cost of your house because it's in as-is condition. The same thing with items back there. They're as-is or they're faux. So all these things have to come under consideration when we are dealing with looking at a value of something. So we have local value. For example, Robert and all of us did a presentation in Globe, Arizona for the Gila Museum. And we did an antique fair sort of avenue blind. And people drug in all these items. There were 40 people in attendance. We limited it to 25. And they brought in items that were old, really old, but made our job very easily because all of those old things were in marginal condition. And condition makes the value of everything down. But we brought a Christmas ornament, and that Christmas ornament was a limited edition of Governor Moffat's 80th birthday, okay? And there were 400 made. We have 15 of them, okay? And we brought it up, and if that ornament had been in Los Angeles, it would have been in the junk heap. Here in Phoenix, I would say less than 50% of the people in Phoenix have any idea who Governor Moffat was. We with gray hair and hardening of the arteries know who she was. But the onslaught of all the many people who've moved here, she has moved into the past. Where in Globe is where she's from, there are people there who remember her, and that ornament will have considerable value in Globe versus it here in Phoenix, which would have some value compared to Los Angeles. So the market is very important when you are considering the valuing of something. So remember Rose and the ornament and say market is everything, place is everything. Okay, we're down to your quiz. And I would like you to open up your handout that I gave you that gives you some information about us. I gave you our July newsletter full of all kinds of nice information and what it's worth today, and we have quiz time. All right, and it starts at the bottom of the page of your salmon-colored paper, and you have an AZ appraisal pen. And I'm going to read the question to you because there are a number of people who said they were going to be here and they're missing out on the fun. You're supposed to laugh now. Okay, here we go. When China became a trading partner with the United States in the late 1990s, it began the decline and bankruptcy of US-made furniture companies like Bassett and others. Okay? I'm going to pick on someone who is sitting in the back of the class, a former teacher, and she knows who it is. What is your answer to that question?
False.
She says false. Okay? How many people agree with her? Hands up. Well, you have two in the frying pan with you. Why did you not raise your hand? What would you put it as?
Because I feel that places like Bassett and the other high-end furniture places, it doesn't matter whether it's from China or it doesn't matter. It would be as high. It would remain at its highest peak.
Okay, you circumvented the question, but I would agree with you. You're wrong. You're partially right. True or false?
I guess true.
You're correct. It is true. Because what happened in the 1990s, the furnishings that were made in this country were made out of solid woods and good veneers. Major handmade furnishings. The cost of that furnishing was rising as the cost of labor was beginning. China comes in, and those furniture companies began moving all of their items over to China, as you so aptly put, and the prices basically remained status quo, high, but they were no longer made out of wood. They became molded laminate on wood product. Okay? Molded laminate on wood product. And I'm going to talk more about molded laminate on wood product and what happens to it. So the quality of the furniture went down when China took over, and Taiwan, and the Philippines. The quality of the furniture that was made pre-China is still out on the market, and its value has plummeted because of the style. But it's better quality furniture that will last lifetimes, but people don't want it because that's out of style. So, question number 2. The housing market, especially home ownership, drives every part of the retail and services in the economy. If it slows, the economy slows. All right, my next victim is over here moaning, and all you have to do is say true or false.
False.
She said false, all right? Now, how many people agree with her that it is false? Oh, you have one in your camp? All right, I'm going to come back here and ask her why she thinks it's false.
Because people always need stuff and services. And so I think that it just continues on. It may not grow, but it just continues. People still buy new window treatments, or they buy new sofa cushions, or they still take trips.
Okay. I used to teach an SAT class, all right? And that SAT class says, read the question, underline the main issues, and answer the question. You're right in some of the issues, but the answer truly is false, okay? No, true, sorry. True. You got me on your wagon now. so it's true. The housing market is basically collapsed, all right? And let's look at Phoenix in the metropolitan area. As you drive around, you remember pre-2008, there were large subdivisions being cleared out in the desert, and there were major advertisements for home builders to come out, and you could buy a new house, et cetera, because they were just being replicated faster than they could build them. Where in that today, you don't have those huge tracts of land that's being cleared. Yeah, there's pockets, there's small areas, there are infills, and basically where people are buying are infilled within the greater metropolitan Phoenix area, not out in the suburbs. So we have 27 major cities in the country where the housing market is not private homes, but apartment complexes. And as you drive through Phoenix, you see these canyons of apartment complexes building everywhere. Now, those apartment complexes are going up in those 27 plus cities, that's where the jobs are. And those who are fulfilling those jobs are the millennials. And the millennials went through college, and they lived in wonderful dorms that even had coffee shops in them, and television rooms, and entertainment, and all the other stuff that's there. Far from when I went to college, when you went to college, it was a whole new era for them. Those apartment complexes modeled them after the dorms, because that's where their family environment is within that area. They can text each other from room to room, or they can stream feed whatever, or meet down in the lobby. So home ownership is not in the status quo at all. When you are not in the store on the home ownership, you don't need furniture. You don't need any of those items that would drive the economy, because the millennial is out buying at Pottery Barn and IKEA and other disposable furnishing companies and filling up their apartment with whatever the millennials want that's minimalist. And if they're transferred, they go off and leave it all, because it is disposable furnishings. So yes, the housing market does drive the economy, and the housing market is down, which therefore affects a great deal amounts of the housing industry. Look at the number of furniture stores that have gone out of business. Remember Robin Stuckey? Gone. And you would find other major furniture stores are gone. All right, number 3, next page. The housing market has not fully recovered since the collapse in 2008. The market data is being skewed due to the rapid increase in high-ticket geographic areas such as San Francisco, New York, Atlanta, Chicago, Phoenix, and other expanding cities. This one is here to see if you heard me from the first time. And you've got to get this one right. Is this true or false?
True.
True. Good. Thank you. Number 4. Affordable classic collectible cars priced under $30,000 have stayed constant with less than 4% annual increase in the value for most cars during the last 7 years. All right? Affordable classic collectible cars. I'll give you an example. A 1962 Chevrolet convertible in good shape. That is a classic collectible car. Not a Rolls-Royce 1936. That's a high-tier car. That's in the millions of dollars. I'm just talking about the big boys' play toys of classic collectible cars. They're saying it's 4% annual increase. Sir, would you say true or false?
I said false.
Well, I'm going to disagree. The affordable classic collectible cars have maintained value approximately at 4%. And they have remained status quo. The big tier cars, tier A, have gone up thousands of percent. A car that in 2008 that sold for $500,000 now may be selling for $5.5 million. Wherein that the classic Chevrolet I was telling you about may have sold in 2008 for $14,500 in excellent condition, may be worth today at $17,500. It has maintained a steady growth of those cars. However, there's two types. There is the car that has been refurbished and or the car that is a resto mod. A refurbished car has all of the original items in it as best as possible. A resto mod has a tape deck or a stereo deck. It has a new transmission. It has a different color to it. It's all modernized to the hilt, but it still looks old. The resto mods have declined in value. The refurbished ones have maintained and increased in value. It is like a fine piece of antique furnishings. If it has its original patina and everything to it, and it has been well maintained, it has increased in value. If you have refinished it and made it nicer, you have decreased its in value. So that's the same thing with automobiles. So, are we having fun yet? All right. Number 5. The increase in the value of abstract and modernist art is based on speculators who are driving today's art market. I'm going to come back to the back row, and I'm going to come over here, and it is your turn.
I'm going to guess true.
You are 100% correct. Ladies and gentlemen, we do continuing education credits, public speaking, on hoarder houses and how to deal with a hoarder house, the difference between primary and secondary market values in art, about how to, the best avenues about liquidating or dealing with an estate, who to hire, what you should read in contracts. All of those are parts of information that I think the public needs to know. And the increase in abstract and modernist art is skyrocketing because wine and art are the last two unregulated investments where the bazillionaires, it's their playground. If you took art out of New York, the economy in New York would have a drastic impact on the economy in New York because people go to all of the nice fairs, the gallery openings, etc. Now, I'm going to play a little game with you. I am a bazillionaire. It's a game now. And I have discovered that you have fantastic art, abstract art. I found you in a little gallery. And I said, I'm going to make you. And so I buy your $2,000 painting, and we're going to put it into an auction. And I'm going to take my dear friend here, and myself, and another bazillionaire friend with me, and we're going to go to that auction. And we're going to make that painting go up to $400,000. We're going to make you a listed artist, well-known, emerging artist who's really with it. All right? We now have a record of you. So, we now own your $400,000 painting. We have all of our other billionaire friends, and we have found this person. Look at her art. It's unbelievable. Your 400,000 can wind up going up to 1 million, 3 million, 4 million as the emerging artist of today brought on by your group of friends, the billionaires, until we find someone else. And goodbye, and you're the new victim. So your art begins to go down. And we see it all the time in the world of investments. Because what it is, we have the attorney here, and this attorney is put together a partnership of all of us who are just John Q. Public, and we're going to start buying into her art. And so her art now goes over to New Jersey and goes into a savings house. Nobody owns it. And it sits there for a while. Then it's brought out, and we investors now who invested in that, it goes before auction, and it's your last hurrah, and that painting goes for X number of dollars, then it's split among us, and that's going on. Banks are now loaning out on art. So we have what I call the next big bubble. But the billionaires aren't going to be hurt. That's their fun. We are the ones that are going to be hurt because we're being driven by greed. So the same thing with wine. There was an article on October 2nd in the New York Times of the exploding market of wine. And those people who have deep, dark, dank wine cellars are filled with multi-million dollars worth of wine that is being traded out on the market. And it's the same avenue. There was 9 bottles that were confiscated out of World War II that came from the Nazis that went on the market, French wines that blew the roof off on wine. So abstract, modernist art, wine are your 2 major investment areas that is unregulated today. Number 6, brown furnishings or antiques have fallen worldwide by almost 70% of their original pre-2008 value. Okay? Let's see, I've picked on almost everyone. It's your turn again.
Oh, dear. I don't know what brown furnishings are.
It's wood.
It's wood.
Yeah, it's dark colored. It's not blonde. It's not.
I'm going to say true.
You guessed right. Yes, brown furnishings, antiques have fallen by 70% or more. The text or email I received today, the furnishings that have been in the storage room locker for 7 years, it's now she has to do something with. There are household furnishings of antiques that she claims are 150 years old, then went into all kinds of descriptions on them. And if she sold them 9 or 8, 9, 10 years ago, she would have made a great deal of money. Today, she's not. Because brown furnishings happen to be dead. Go and tour homes that have been staged. You're not going to see antiques and dark furniture in there. You're going to see the minimalist, most uncomfortable furnishings that you have ever sat on. You're going to see bedrooms that you say, how can you even use that as an end table? Much less, where are you going to sit down? Because that's the look, minimalist. And you're not going to see grandma's chest in there. You're not going to see any of that. We get a call almost every day. Oh, my children don't want any of the family heirlooms. They don't want the furniture. What am I going to do? Maybe I should just start getting rid of it and make it easier on them. Why? Think about, did you not have to change their diapers when they were growing up? Did you not have to deal with them in school and school issues? Didn't you go through relationship problems with them? Did they not misbehave? Why do you want to make it easier for them? They haven't made it easy on you, so enjoy them. Get the most joy out of the memories that are there and get even. And by getting even, I want you to write up a history of 4 or 5 things and tape it to the inside drawer or wherever it is. And when they open it up, make them feel guilty. that they don't want to get rid of it. That's the way you're going to get back at them when they say, we don't want any of this stuff. So I invite you to do that. It'll work. Guilt always works. And that's why you have it. I had one participant say, I know what we need to do, just get rid of the kids. So enjoy your brown furniture, enjoy your antiques, and leave them a note. 7, local auction houses, antique and collectible malls, secondhand stores, art galleries, and thrift stores have had a decline in gross sales by as much as 25% for this year.
True.
Very true. We have a decline of approximately 25% in 2018 in collectible malls, antiques, etc. In fact, you can go online. They're having an auction out of an antique mall in Mesa. Everything goes. The mall has gone bankrupt. We have antique shops. They're not around anymore, which should give you an indication of what your antiques are worth. If there's no shops there to purvey them, they don't have the value that they'd be. All right. Number 8 is what overwhelms me. There are over 89 Goodwill stores in Arizona, including over 2,800 Goodwill stores in the United States, not counting the warehouses that house an abundance of donated furnishings that have accelerated during the last 18 months. What do you think it is? True. It's true. In fact, there are 3 Goodwill stores, 2 in Phoenix, 1 in Tucson, that has a furniture crusher in the back of them. So items that are not saleable or are in conditions that could not be sold get chewed up and spit out. Many of the clothes and other items are put onto large pallets and sent down as Salvation Army does, and they're auctioned off 3 times a week. You can go down and buy a pallet of stuff that they have so much of. Why you'd want to buy it, I guess because you want to have a garage sale continuous in your yard, getting rid of the stuff. And much of it is shipped to third world nations out of it. We are drowning in our stuff. And the reason we are drowning in our stuff is because we are downsizing, we are dying, and our heirs don't want it. So that's a sad dilemma. And Goodwill is reaping it in. 89 Goodwill stores. One in Scottsdale is a designer Goodwill. One in Gilbert, designer Goodwill. And go in and look at the prices. They're not thrift store prices at all. Go in and look at the items that are there. They're making 100% on the dollar of your donated items. All right, number 9. The emphasis on minimalism, abstract art, modern and contemporary furnishings have caused a collapse of antiques, vintage, primitive, Tuscan, and other styles. We have a mono-style market today. This is another question that you should all say true based upon what I've been telling you. Mono-style. Yawn, yawn. Out of it all, believe it or not, primitives can be incorporated into a mid-century modern. So there are certain plain items that can go in and balance it out. The pendulum is going to swing another direction, and it's slowly starting to swing towards, are you ready, 1840s American antique that have blah, plain, etc. That's just blah, just a chest. Guess what they're doing with that brown furniture? Painting it black, purple, red, green, exactly what our forefathers did in the 1930s during the Depression, took all that furniture and painted it white to make it look new. And that's what they're doing now. What the decorators are taking antique furnishings and painting it, and then incorporate, well, they're at least saving it. It's keeping it out of the jaws of the furniture crushers, and it's good furnishings, and it can always be stripped and brought back to what it was, but it's staying alive. So we are beginning to see an incorporation of items back into the market, but the emphasis is still upon the mid-century modern with accent pieces. And so, but the frilly, Eastlake, Victorian, all of the highly carved items, you could paint it until you're blue in the face. It's still going to be frilly, Victorian, has too much makeup on. So, all right, number 10. The millennials are influencing and driving today's market. True. They are making what's happening in our country, from politics to purchases. They are our driving force, as we were once the driving force in the country. Let me tell you a quick story about the millennials, all right? The millennials, 2008, were children in homes that went through the recession where millions of homes were lost, and they became homeless, and they had to be moved. And so that was a disenfranchised from the thriving of the middle class to the surviving of the middle class. So the millennials were raised in a declining market, loss of homes, loss of the American ideal. And then they went into that we are going to thrive. We are not going to thrive, we're going to have to survive. So the whole thing changed. Houses today are built without dining rooms. They have great rooms. So consequently, the millennials don't want your dishes. Even the thrift stores don't want your dishes. And you remember that you would find a set of dishes that was a great bargain for $6,500 for service for 12 that had serving pieces with it. Now you can go to a thrift store and or a consignment store and buy that same set for under $200. Seriously. And if it has metal on it, you don't want it at all because you can't put it in the microwave. It'll pop, snapple, and crack. And some dishes you can't put in the dishwasher. So you go and buy that crystal clear plastic and set on the table. In fact, today, millennials know how to make reservations more than know what goes on in the kitchen. So much of your dishes and your finery have gone the wayside because that all showed that to the people who sat at your table that you were thriving. Today, they are only surviving because they're drowning in debt. Tons and tons of debt. So, yes, the millennials are driving it. 11, and you better get this one right. Auction estimates like you see on the roadshow are not valid as they are not based on a defined value. What is the answer to that, ladies and gentlemen? True. All right. 12, almost all new furnishings and decor are molded laminate over wood product with few made from wood and or veneers. I just taught you that. These are my double check to see if you really are listening, and I'm going to teach you a little about laminate. Almost everything today is molded laminate over wood product, and it doesn't hold up. And if you, let's say you have a desk at home that you work at all the time that you just purchased, and the laminate is starting to wear away on it. You can't refinish that. I'm sorry. Or you have chipped the laminate or whatever, and you might see that there's a little white underneath that laminate there. Well, you have just told me that that laminate was made pre-2008 on that furnishings. That white happens to be molded glue, wood product, and formaldehyde that has gone into the making of the underworking of what's in that furnishings. California and other states have under furnishings now, this may contain formaldehyde, hazardous to your health, and also a fire danger. because your molded laminate furnishings go poof in a fire. So they're not the slow burning like good old wood, because it's not good old wood. It's combustible materials that laminate is over. We did an appraisal, I would say, again, it was this year. It was a company here in Phoenix that made furnishings for hotels. Very large company at one time. And that company went, and they had a staff and a building 3 times the size of this room that had all the equipment and an old laminating machine. Most of it was all made wood furnishings. Well, he couldn't make it because everything was being outsourced to China. Well, an Asian woman in Los Angeles made an offer to buy the old equipment. He still thinking it had intrinsic value because the equipment in it was 40 and 50 years old, but it was very good. It was made in Austria, Germany, fine furniture making machineries. Today's are all computerized in the area, not the old handicraft ones. So it was already dated even though it was fine. When all of those businesses went defunct in the Carolinas, there are literally warehouse after warehouse of old equipment that is languishing away because nobody really wants it because those businesses have gone. Trying to explain that to the man. He has a live wire on of an Asian woman who wants to buy the building, wants to buy the equipment, and keep the 9 employees in business. He was wanting bazillions of dollars, and he only got X dollars for it. And I told him, I said, you have a live wire, and we learned a long time ago that in the Asian culture, Vietnamese, Chinese, whatever, is they value brains. They value what you know. And if you're stupid, that's your fault. I will take advantage of you because you're stupid. Today we try to take that as, well, this person is a sandwich short of a picnic, and so we'll understand that. But no. And I said, you will be able to sell if you're realistic with your values, and we're realistic with the values. Well, anyway, the deal was consummated. She was happy. He was unhappy because he didn't get $150,000 for what really was less than $50,000 worth of items left in the place. So it shows you what's happening to the furniture and the industry. Okay.
That even happened almost 50 years ago. Because I bought a Thomasville bedroom set when we first came back into country, and I tapped it, and it was the inserts were plastic.
Yes, that's the beginning of the inserts. Well, we have in Thomasville and all of them, we have different tiers of furnishings. We have the very expensive ones that everything's down, and then we get down to the ones that are where they began cutting corners, plastic drawers, plastic runners, etc. So those are my questions for you, and you did good. And Robert, do you have any jewelry you would like to talk about? Well, you bring up your bags, and as you are coming up, I'm going to bring, with your information, you have to come up here for the mic. You have 6 items in the back, and the items are listed in the order of their values. The compote back there is one of the older pieces, and most compotes have lost their lids. This one has its lid, and it has a little tiny chip on it, okay? You're very astute, okay? Before we go any further, Robert is here to talk about your jewelry, and don't say who it belongs to. All right, so here you are, Robert.
Thanks. Put this here. Hello. Okay. We have a few items here. I think 6 or 7 in total. And I'm going to start with number 1. Number 1 is a pocket watch, probably circa 1900. It has a hunter case on it, which is typical for a pocket watch back in that day. It's Elgin. That's the name of the company. And when you open it, you're looking for hallmarks. If it says 14 karat, then you're looking at a pretty high value pocket watch. What I found in this particular one is guaranteed 25 years. What does that mean? Well, it's mass produced, and what else does it mean? Well, it's gold plated. The gold plate on it is warranted for 25 years. Yeah, you'll either see guaranteed or warranted. Or warranted. So anyway, this watch is in very nice condition. Fair market value on it would be somewhere in the range of $150 to $200. And you can find a lot of them for sale online, even though they're very old. If it were 14 karat, you'd be looking at around $1,000. Okay. If you were to go out and sell it at orderly liquidation value, you're looking between $100 and $150. Okay. I guess Tom allowed second item, so there's a second item with this one. There's a 14 karat yellow gold crystal opal ring set with 11 cabochon style crystal opals. The center one being 7 millimeters across, and the 10 additional surrounding the center are 3 millimeter. This ring here has a fair market value of about $300. Okay, and a orderly liquidation value of $220. Now, if it were sold at a retail store, you'd be looking more in the $750 range. So you can see the difference in values. Okay. Now, who had number 1? Okay. Now, number 2 was a gold triple strand bracelet, 14 karat. It's 7.5 inches long, and it weighs about 22.5 grams, 22.2 to be exact. Fair market value on that particular piece would range somewhere in the $770 to $850 range. Okay. Fair market value on it is between $490 and $550. I like that bracelet quite a bit. It's nice style. The second item in that number 2 was a 14 karat yellow gold peridot and diamond ring. It had a trillion cut center, measures about 8 millimeters, which translates into about 1.8 carats. Relatively nice peridot, nice bright color, yellowish green. And it had two round brilliant cut diamonds on the side, weighing about 0.02 carats total weight. So they were little chips. And the quality of those diamonds was about a J color and I1 in clarity. Now I1 is, there are several clarity classifications for diamonds, starting with flawless, okay? Then it goes down to VVS, VS, SI, and then the I's. So it's down toward the bottom in quality. Fair market value on that particular ring is probably right around 120, and orderly liquidation value about $90. There's not much weight to it. It's 2.2, let's see here, 2.7 grams. So anyway, there's that one. And then number 3, when I first saw the bracelet, I thought it might be jade, but it wasn't. It's something called green Bakelite. You've probably heard of Bakelite. Bakelite was the first synthetic plastic back in the early 1900s. And this bracelet was probably made somewhere in the 1940s or 1950s. You can find quite a few of them online. And you're looking at about $60 orderly liquidation value on the wide one. And then there's a second one that's a thinner version that's about $20 fair market value. Oh, excuse me, $25 fair market value and $20 orderly liquidation value. Then the last item we have here is a 14 karat yellow gold diamond ring set with a diamond that the measure is about 6.33 by 6.3 millimeters. The diamond has what's called an extremely thick girdle, which is the outermost part of the diamond. If you think of that outermost part, it's very thick instead of thin, okay? And because of that, it retains a lot of weight right there in that particular place. A 6.3 millimeter diamond would usually translate into a 0.90, more or less, carat diamond. But because of that thick girdle, I'm estimating it more to, between 1.05 and 1.1 carats because of the weight retention there. The quality's pretty nice. It's a H color in my estimation, which is near colorless, and a SI1. The inclusions it has are what are called low relief, which means they're see-through. They're not dark, which is nice. But the location of them right in the center of the stone gives it that SI1 call. If they were dark, it would be probably an I1. But because you can see through them, you get the SI1 call. That particular ring, I'm estimating at fair market value of $4,200 and an orderly liquidation value of $3,500. Okay. If you were to go to a store, just the diamond would cost you in the range of $6,500 to $7,000, just for the diamond. Okay. So you can see there's quite a difference in values. I think that was all the items. Yes. Well, they can be the main value.
How well the bracelet is actually made?
Yes, that's
it's-
very important. Yeah.
So,
And also if it's a brand name such as Tiffany or Cartier, you're looking at the value way up. Okay. But if it's just a generic, you're looking more or less gold value. And especially with orderly liquidation sales, you're not going to get much over the actual gold melt value. And then you're not going to get a big value on the stones usually, only if they're really, really nice quality and have good size and are well cut. Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you, Robert.
Well, thank you.
All right, we're almost finished. We have our drawings in the back. We brought items that at one time had pretty good value, but some of them had condition issues. Some of them have been outnumbered and lost lots of interest. And I'm going to quickly go through them. For example, you, sir, are very good at noting condition. We have the circa 1880s glass covered compote that has chips on the lid. Well, that's very common, simply for the fact as you slam the lid down, you might get a little glass in the candy. And most of those lids have disappeared, and you wind up only having the bottom part of it. But when you find them with the lid, they still have a degree of some collectability. On eBay completed sales, where all this stuff can be found, and believe it or not for you, most classic cars are sold through eBay. The biggest seller of classic cars. So if he comes home and says, honey, I want to buy this car, look it up on completed sales on eBay and see if he's going to be overcharged. Okay. So on eBay completed sales, on one in as-is condition, and I did not find one exactly like it, but I did find one that had minor damage. The orderly liquidation value for that compote was $28, all right, because in its condition. The fair market value for it was $42. So only one person put their name into it, and Laura, would you mind bringing it to who's the name in there? I didn't pick up the name. Raise your hand if you're the one who got it. Jennifer Butler, put it on your desk, fill it with arsenic and old lace. All right. The next item was the Breyer's Choice Carolers, and they are one of the last Christmas ornaments factories in the country. All right. The Breyers are massively making them. Their faces are all different. They're all handmade. They are quite collectible, and particularly the Choice Carolers. And this was a 2000 toy, and it was pre-owned. Well, the fair market value on that one is $30. All right. At orderly liquidation value is $19. I bought that one at a local auction for $15. Okay. So nobody gets it because nobody put their name in on it. Pity, pity. But believe it or not, it's Christmas items, and Christmas items don't really pick up until starting November and December. The next one, and I think there's some names in that, Laura, and I would like you to draw one of them out. It is the Fenton Orange Tree Marigold Carnival glass mug. And Marigold is the most common carnival glass out there. And if it's common, the values are not there. But if it is a different color and it's maybe has grapes on it or something, or a bowl besides a mug, they have greater value. That mug, and Laura, who's our winner on that one? Okay, Carol. The orderly liquidation value on that is $10. The fair market value of it is $17, and there's an exact replica of it on eBay. Okay? All right, our next item is the Hopi Kachina doll that is the squash head. And no one put their name in on that one. And Kachinas, talk to you very briefly about Kachinas. Kachinas were very popular in the 80s and 90s when we had the Southwest decor. We don't have the Southwest decor the way we did. It's passé. And they were being cranked out right and left with they were made out of cottonwood, carved cottonwood, painted with all the accoutrements glued on, from feathers to fur to leather to copper to turquoise. And guess what happens to all that stuff over time? It deteriorates, it falls off, and your Kachina looks like it went through the war, and unless you had it under a glass dome. So those kind of Kachinas have lost the $350 to $700 that you were paying for them there. If they're still in very, very good shape, and they have a great artistic view to them, it doesn't look like that they were made by a student on the reservation. They are on eBay. You will see them going anywhere between $70 to $300. The ones that have value, a great deal of value, are the ones that are all hand carved out of cottonwood. And the hand carved ones that are intricately painted, even the feathers are all done out of wood, can go from $500 to $1,000. This one, I had to find a comparable for it. Here, Laura, nobody wanted it, and I don't blame them. This one has all kinds of conditions to it. The arm has been glued on. I don't know if it was done by the artist or not. It is made with all the glue-ons, but the fertility signs of it, of the squash, are very amateurish. And to me, it looks very student-oriented. The name has been, the maker has been obliterated for good reason. And so the one that was online that I used as a comparable is one that is in very nice shape. The flowers are nicely done, and it's in very good shape, sold for $69. Now, that is the orderly liquidation value for it, and it also said free shipping from Tacoma, Washington. This thing wound up in Tacoma, Washington. So it not is only the orderly liquidation value for it, but it's also the fair market value for it, because there was no shipping charges to it. This one, all right, in its condition, the orderly liquidation value would be $15 because of its condition. The fair market value for it would be more like $20, and it would probably sit at the shop forever and ever and ever. So nobody gets to take you home, I'm sorry. Our next one. All right, who's the lucky winner of the Wannabe Waterford? Anybody? Well, draw it out. Whose name do you have in it? All right. Leo. This is a family. They got it. I mean, they did this on purpose. All right. Leo, look right there. See the flaw in it? Of course. Okay. Leo got the water pitcher, and it is a wannabe. And again, we had to look for a parallel to it. and a parallel to it sold for $12.75. Okay? So the orderly liquidation value for that is $12.75. The fair market value after all of the charges are put on the sales, not the sales tax, but the shipping charges, the insurance charges, etc. That moves it to its fair market value. He would have paid not $12.75 for it. He would have wound up paying $22 for that. So the fair market value of that is $22. All right, our last one, which is the Hummel. All right. Hummels have been mass produced, and they have been sold through Costco, and they have online, and people collected Hummels. You remember your first trip to Europe, if you went to Europe and you went to the Scandinavian countries and you went to Hummel shops, and there would be $400, $500, $600, $800 for a Hummel. And then they started the Hummel Club, and you got to pay more money for the Hummel Club. And so who's the lucky winner on this one?
We have Diane Wright.
Diane Wright gets to take home the Hummel. Well, I am very happy for you, but let's not tell her what it's worth, okay? So the orderly liquidation for that Hummel is $15, okay? The fair market value with the expedited shipping and other related expenses brings it to $32. So in Phoenix, we have several auction houses that get flooded with Hummels. And those Hummels go for anywhere between $5 and $15. However, you have limited editions, larger Hummels that are considered rarer will go for $150 to $500. But this one is like so many that people have. This is a commonplace Hummel. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed today, and I enjoyed being with you, and I hope you felt like you were in a class, back in school, and thank God we're not back in school. And I'm turning it over to Laura.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
And thank you all for attending. We really appreciate it. We will be putting this online later on in the month for those of your friends that you want to invite to enjoy in their living room off their computer or their tablet. So anyway, we really enjoy bringing these opportunities to our listeners for KJZZ and KPOC. So we're most appreciative to Tom for his time, and Tom for being part of our business membership also. So he's been a wonderful support to the stations, and we appreciate it. And we all thank you for being valuable supporters also.